Bonjour YouTube, welcome to this live Q&A for Comme Française 6th birthday. I wanted to make a special episode on both channels in order to answer questions that were submitted by the students. So if you have any question, you can put them in the chat. And I also have lots of questions that I got from students. We had 168 questions. Which is pretty crazy. Some of them were, why do you wear glasses? Well, because I can see very well. Bonjour, Carmen. So it's open for questions. I'm turning on, okay, checking that I can see everything. I think I can. So I'm going to start answering a few questions that were submitted by students. And if you have questions, you can pop them in the comments, either in Facebook or on YouTube, because I'm doing both at the same time. Bonjour, Aiden. A funny question I wanted to start with is, why did you start Comme Française? Bonjour, Célia. Bonjour, Couronne. Bonjour, Jack. So why did you start Comme Française? It's funny because I think Comme Française is kind of in my blood. Because my mom is Mexican, I'm binational, and most of my family is in Mexico, actually. So I've always known what it was to be the foreigner, having people kind of not understanding you, making mistakes, because my mom still does. She will never lose her accent, and people will always ask her, where are you from? So when I was going to Mexico, I was a foreigner, because I didn't speak perfectly, and I didn't have all the custom and the traditions in me. So I was the foreigner. And then after that, I went to England for 2 years to live and work. And I loved being the foreigner there because I knew the language, but I didn't know all the customs. Then I came back to France. And that's where I found that by giving classes to migrants at the Red Cross that I could answer their questions. So I loved it so much that I decided to start my company, and that's how Comme Française started. And what was so funny is that I have American friends and from other nationalities here as well in Grenoble, because we have such a big community of expats that I submitted the idea to them. And they told me, I told them about the concept of Comme Française, about helping foreigners integrate in France, whether they were tourists or expats or just Francophile. And the answer was, oh, please do that. I need it now. And so that's what happened. And I started the company. And I've had so many wonderful students so far, including, I know some of you are there in the public. I can see the names because I remember the names of students. So I'm very, very glad to be here today. And it's been 6 years. So we've done so many things. As you can see, if you've been there for a few years, even a few months, we try to make it better every time. Kieran has the question. Kieran is one of my students from several courses. Where did you find those great actors for the courses? So if you don't know Comme Française's paying classes, which are premium programs yet, maybe you don't know yet some of the actors who are in the classes. The actors happen to be real actors that I went to see in Grenoble, and they became my friends because some of them were already my friends, so I met them through that. And when we decided to do Bonjour Janie courses at a deeper level than just what we're doing on YouTube, which is very, very, very much the tip of the iceberg, I hired them because they have so much energy and talent to make our classes. So they're friends of friends, and they were actors that I went to see here in Grenoble. Fantastic. I'm keeping an eye on both screens. So I'm going to tick the question now that I answered. Elena asks, I have been following your work for a number of years. Thank you, Elena. It is always informative, interesting, and motivating. Oh, thank you. What keeps you motivated and what pushes you to always go on? I love what I do, and I what pushes me to keep on going is fantastic feedback from students. Not in, oh, I love what you do. That's not the point. In the fact that they're achieving things. For example, students telling me, I know one of them is living in Nice, and she's been living in Nice for a while, and she was going to this restaurant over and over, and she took, I think it was Settled French for Fitting In, which is one of my advanced courses on how to build conversations and relationships with French people over time. And she went through the program and she tried something I told her to try in the restaurant. And she came back to me and she told me, oh, Geraldine, I've been there 10 times. And it's the first time the owner of the restaurant does like this to me because I've said the right words. And it's this kind of thing, seeing you, even if you're just watching on YouTube or reading the blog or going through bigger programs that we offer, you achieving things, it's what motivates me. And that's what I love so much. So it's always a pleasure hearing back from students. So if you have something to share, please do. I love hearing about that. And it's a great thing that you're doing. So keep on improving your French. I'm checking on a question from Harry. Hi, Geraldine. I love your videos. Thank you, Harry. Could you please explain the difference between nous and on in spoken French? It's very simple. We almost never use nous, ever, ever, ever. So on is always what you have to use in spoken French. If you're writing things, it will be the generic one can do something in English, but it's on. But again, in spoken French, just use that. If at some point, if you're meeting someone very official, like President Macron or a deputy or someone you have to be very formal with, you can use nous, but 99.9% of the time it's only on. So that's super simple. Keep up the good work, Harry, and it will make wonders. Okay, so that's a second question I had. I think I won't be able to answer everything, so I will give my best. That's answered. So we are good. You told me, so that's the question. You told me that you had an engineering degree. That's cool because I do and my wife as well. Could you tell us a bit more about this? Can you do an episode on engineering? Well, I don't think I will do an episode on Comme, Française on engineering itself because it's very, very niche and specific. So we can talk about that anytime, but that's a bit too niche for Comme, Française. Yes, I have an engineering degree. In France, it's 5 years, and you have to do what's called Maths Sup and Maths P, and that's very, very high level math and physics. I loved it. And then after that, you go to engineering school for 3 years. And that's where I came here in Grenoble in the Alps because of this engineering school that I wanted to go to, which was specialized in physics. I loved it. It was a fantastic time. After that, I went to England. I absolutely wanted to move to England, doing whatever people wanted me to do. I didn't care. I would have loved to go to Scotland as well. I love Scotland. And then I found out that engineering is great, but working in a big company was not my thing. And I was ready to do more difficult and challenging things while I was young and without any responsibility. So I thought it's now or never. So I did it. And it's been 6 years now. So yeah, engineering is fantastic. You just have to be sure that's what you really want to do. Oh, thank you, Harry. There's so many things. Kieran says, say something in a Leeds accent. I can't. It's been too long. But what's funny, if I'm stressed, some people say I tend to have a Scottish accent when I'm very, very stressed. It happened once. Well, I know it happened on stage once, and someone said that to me, which I knew. but I'm really bad at accents, especially in English, and I wouldn't want to be disrespectful by trying to mock something that I don't know enough of. So no. D says, I can't believe it's been 6 years. Me neither. It's crazy. I'm checking. There's a fun question because that's very specific to where I live. Do you drive a car? If yes, what type of brand do you have? We own a very not sexy car, which is called un Kangoo, which is kind of it's like un utilitaire. It's kind of people who work use this kind of car so they can put everything in the back of the car. And what happens here in Grenoble, where I live, it's surrounded by mountains. It's once you said it's Renault. Yes, it's a Renault car. It's a very French one. And what happens here in Grenoble, everybody's doing lots of sports and mountain sports. So we needed a car where we could put our skis in and not being to buy extra stuff on the top of the car, being able to go camping with it, putting everything in the back of the car without worrying so much. And what happens is that lots of people here in Grenoble have the same car because it's all for the same purpose. So it's absolutely not a sexy car, but it's a very useful car. And in 2 hours, I'm going to the center of France to meet friends, and we're going to put everything in the back and going straight there. And I have there in the fridge of my office a massive raclette for 15 people. So we need this kind of big car to put everything in the back. So even if it's spring, we shouldn't do that. But we're doing in raclette this weekend on Saturday, and it's going to be very delicious. I don't know if you guys had any before. It's really good. Thank you, Karen, for your kind words. Raclette is really good. It's absolutely not French. It's from Switzerland. A question about an interesting topic because it's cultural as well. Thank you, Sally. It's nice to know something about the person who is teaching. Is teaching you. Okay, if it's not impolite to ask, sorry, are you married? Do you have children? What are your hobbies? What do you enjoy doing? Feel free to answer only what you feel comfortable with, but helps to connect more with the person if you know something of their personal life. I don't talk about my private life, especially because in France, we don't necessarily put our private life in the open. So I'm not going to talk about this. If you've been through a couple of my courses, especially in the Salon de Géraldine, which is a class on more everyday events and popular culture, I talk about French singers, French writers. I talk about what's going on in the news, lots of things like that. I tend to talk a bit more about that, but I don't talk about it in the open. What are your hobbies? I like to ski. Just started. I'm kind of getting better at skiing, so that's good. I love board games, and I'm a huge theater nerd. So I'm the kind of people who goes to London and goes to see 7 plays in 4 days, for example, and I just stay in the theater for all day. Theater is one of my big passions. I would go anywhere to see an interesting play. So that's what I love. Yes, Ara has a very good question because it's something I wanted to talk about. Are you going to make more videos in French? Yes, absolutely. Following the fantastic feedback that we got about the French episode we made about 7 mots bizarres en français, we decided to make more episodes in French. We are planning on making 1 episode a month in French. So it was also, we had fantastic feedback, very constructive feedback as well. So because an episode in French is more difficult for everybody to understand, but it's fantastic practice, we are going to build it a bit differently because it needs more work from us to make everything accessible for you. So yes, it's a plan we have for the upcoming time. Can you hear me properly? I think you can. Just checking. If you can hear me, just let me know. So yes, we're going to make more episodes in French. We're going to make them more easy for you to understand. As we say in French, je touche du bois, which is, I think, knocking on wood in English, or je croise les doigts, so we can make this happen. So I hope one episode a month in French, starting hopefully in May. What month is it? Hopefully in April, and then starting in May, it will be easier. Okay. Okay, thank you very much for the feedback on the sound. It's okay. Checking both sides. Okay, I'm getting back to the questions I had. Yes, answered. We had so many that I have to check them, to tick them. Where do you get the ideas for Comme Française? And how do you manage to say cheerful? Well, that's my passion. So that's okay. How do you get ideas? There are several ways for us. I say us because I work with my team as well, but I select all the ideas. How do we get ideas? Students submit ideas in the comments, especially on commeunefrancaise.com. So if you're watching Comme Française on Facebook or YouTube and you want to submit ideas, it's the best way to submit ideas, to go on commeunefrancaise.com on the blog, and you can leave in a comment, and that's where we get the ideas. I can't always manage reading all the comments on all the platforms, so I give my best, but I can't always do it. So commeunefrancaise.com is always the reference. Also by email, because as you might know or not, depending on how close you are to Comme Française, I read all the emails. I try to answer as much as I can. So you can submit them by email as well, by answering any newsletter, or also contacting me on the contact page. That's always a good thing. Okay, so that's the ideas from students. Also, things that come back every year. For example, Easter or April Fool's Day. It's always hard for me to say. That comes back every year. So this is something that I know has to be on the list. So either we do it again or we don't. Some topics that come back every year, I tend to do them every 2 years, because I can reuse the video from the year before and bring you new things. Okay, and other topics is something I experience myself. If I struggle with something in France, for example, I'm thinking about like buying shoes or what else, or writing a postcard, something that I know needs some extra thoughts for me. I know it's going to be difficult for you, so I do something about that. So it's really about what comes to my mind and what comes from students. So always submit ideas. I love them. We have a big list of ideas and we just pick them as they come. Bonjour, Georgia. Georgia est en Belgique. Merci, Dania. Thank you for your kind words. So yeah, if you have ideas, submit them, especially on commeunefrancaise.com or by email. So I'm sure I'm going to read them. A funny question about my Mexican side. How does comment se manifeste ton côté mexicain? How does your Mexican side is seen? Like get seen, I would say. I'm pretty comfortable with people hugging me. That's something that French people hate. I know a friend of mine is married to an American, and even though like it's not about intimate or couple hugs, I'm not talking about that, but hugs from other people, which is something that is done in the Latino America culture and also in the US. Is absolutely not something that we're comfortable with in France, because the body touches, it's a very big difference. So she freezes when someone from her an in-law hugs her. She can't move. And its culture is not against this thing. So I'm okay because I'm from Latino America. So this is something that we do. So it's my Latino side. I'm more used to these kind of things. Apart from that, it's more inside, I would say. And I speak Spanish as well. I understand Spanish like I understand English or French. So that's more how it happens. Giovanni says, I have a French written test next week. Can you wish me good luck? Bonne chance. You will do great. Yeah, well, I am binational. I'm Mexican and French. So, yeah, I am from Latin America as well. Isabella says, do you like Mexican food? Yes, I do. Are you going to do, I had an answer about advanced French. Yes. Jiro says, est-ce que tu pourrais faire un épisode, des vidéos pour les personnes ayant un niveau élevé? Oui, alors, pour les personnes ayant un niveau plus élevé, on a aussi des cours que je recommande, notamment sur la conversation française. On a un cours qu'on vient de sortir qui s'appelle Everyday French Crash Course. Everyday French Conversations. Everyday French Crash Course is my free course that I highly recommend everybody takes because it's really good and it's free. Everyday French Conversations c'est plus avancé. Et donc, ça te permettra d'aller au niveau supérieur en ce qui concerne ton français de la vie de tous les jours. Parce que beaucoup d'élèves font l'erreur d'avoir un français très propre, surtout à un niveau C1 et C2. Et il faut se confronter à des choses plus difficiles. Okay? So I just said that we have a class for more advanced students, which is very useful if you are C1, C2, B2, because it will help you improve your spoken French. Because from experience, I know that advanced students tend to have a clean French, which is way too clean for the way that people actually speak in French. Cindy says, what is your favorite French comfort food and French drink? Excellent question. It's something that's local. My favorite comfort food is les ravioles. Les ravioles, you can Google it. It's not les ravioli, it's les ravioles. And it looks like a pasta that's stuffed, and that's from around where I live. And it's delicious, and it's fresh pasta. So you only cook it for 1 minute. I add cream and grated cheese on top, and it's my favorite comfort food. My second favorite comfort food that I very rarely eat now, it's le Mont d'Or. It's a cheese that is, again, it's not local, but it's from France. And you put it in the oven, and it melts inside, and you can eat it by putting potatoes in it. And oh my God, it's so good. So these are my two favorite comfort food. And in terms of drinks, I'm not an expert on drinks, but I would say sweet white wine is by far my favorite, which is usually called like girls' wine, but I love it. So yeah, that would be my choice for a winter evening. I'm checking, everything's okay. Okay. I listen to your class every day. Everyday French conversation, but I'm not sure how to utilize this course in order to maximize my level of French. So for all the premium classes that we offer, you have lifetime access. That's because all our courses, premium classes, the one where you have to pay, offer so much content that it's impossible to go through it in one go. And also it's classes that grow with you. We are offering always content that is for all the levels, except complete beginners, because that's something that is very specific. So if you are at elementary level, you will learn something. And then as you go, you will pick up new things. So the best thing is to do like 5 minutes here and there, or 10 minutes, if you can 1 hour, but I know everybody's busy. So the best way is to keep practicing a little bit every day or every week, taking lots of notes. And the most important thing, which is something that surprised me when I mentioned it, I know I talked about that with Jack, who is just there, I can see you, is that I always ask my students, why do you want to learn French? And because not everybody wants to learn, and that's absolutely fine. If you don't care about speaking French properly or at a conversational level, that's okay. I won't be offended. You can enjoy the culture, the music, or visiting without speaking. That's okay. I won't blame you. But knowing why you want to learn, if you actually want to, will help you a lot, because then you know where you have to focus. So I know one of the students was talking about a written exam. For a written exam, your spelling has to be really good. Your grammar has to be really good. If you're moving to France, your everyday French has to be really good. So focus on that. If you're just visiting, focus on greetings, focus on things that you will need. It really depends on what you want to learn. And as soon as you know why, it will make everything better. And I was talking with one of my students, Jack, again, and he was surprised by me asking. And for me, it's obvious. I always ask that to any student, whether you care about learning or you don't. It's always important to know why. Nonstop Paris says, I need to go back to work. Good luck. Have a good day. Okay, so I'm picking up on another question. It's a good thing I selected a few, because 168 questions was a bit too much. I see that you had an image makeover in Comme, Française. What led to the transformation? Well, I always want to do better, no matter what I do. And there was a point in Comme, Française where we had reached a size in terms of the number of people watching, like you are now. And in order to honor you as clients or just students or people watching on YouTube, I wanted to give you something better. So that's why we did that. So I have to say it was a lot of work, but I'm happy with the result. And now people who don't know Comme Française might be attracted by it because of the image we have. And then they will come to what we're offering in terms of lessons, free lessons, or just the fun of it. So some people are very curious and they're okay if the site is not very beautiful, and some are not. So it's to be open to new students, no matter what you're looking for in learning French. Quest Hunter says, do you read a lot of books? What kind? I do read a lot of books. I love books. Bonjour, Eileen. And I read lots of books about many, many topics. The books I like the most in French culture are des bandes dessinées, because they're very, very important in the French culture. We talk about this on Comme Française. I recommend books in several episodes. I know that these ones don't do very well in terms of views, but people who like them really like them. So I'm not going to stop making them just because few students enjoy these recommendations. So bande dessinée are always a good way to get into French culture. We have a huge culture around it. Just like Japan, America is starting, you have comic books in the US, we have bande dessinée. It's a different thing, but the idea of having images and words is getting more and more popular. And the bande dessinée in France, in the Francophone country, because Belgium, for us, are the creators of la bande dessinée, is very, very high quality. So instead of struggling with a big literary book, you can learn much, much more and enjoy it more by learning in bande dessinée. So that's what I would recommend, and that's what I read a lot. How long does it take to become fully fluent in French? That's where I'm going to give you the answer you don't want to hear. If you want to pass as French, it will never happen. It shocked a friend of mine. She's from Canada, and she was very shocked when I told her that, but it's true. Honestly, I can spot a foreigner when they say bon, à de bon of bonjour. Not because it's a bad thing, just because the accent will always be there, and we have difficult sounds, such as the on, the ou, the e, the r as well, which are pretty tricky, which you will very probably never master fully as in passing as French. Does it matter? No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter at all. But passing as French, as having passing as French as a goal is going to disappoint you because it will never happen. So instead of having a very unrealistic goal, which is not very valuable, you can focus on being fluent in conversation. That's way more important, because exchanging with someone in French is what is going to open all the doors for you. Whether you have 5 words or 50 or 500 or 5,000, this will open the door for you. So it's more a cultural thing rather than a vocabulary thing. And fluency depends on how much work you put in it, how much experience you have in learning a language, who is teaching you. It's so many factors that I cannot give you a word. And it depends on how you define fluency. So for me, cultural fluency is more important than language fluency. That's why Comme Française is so focused on language and culture, not just language. I'm not teaching you French. I'm teaching you the culture and the customs so you can understand the country and the Francophone culture a bit better. Alice says, I've passed as French speaker from another region. Always from another region. Yeah, people might assume that you're from another region of France. But again, it doesn't matter. I will never pass as English. I will never pass as American, no matter how much I work on my English. And that's not my goal. My goal is to understand what's going on and how to make the other people comfortable with me, and having as few big cultural mistakes as I can. It's much more important than knowing everything in vocabulary. Kelly dit, moi j'adore l'océan d'amour que vous avez recommandé à Noël, ma copine aussi, et elle ne parle pas français. Oui, un océan d'amour, c'est une BD que j'ai offert à un élève que j'aime beaucoup cet hiver, après l'épisode. Un océan d'amour, you can Google it. It's a fantastic bande dessinée that has no spoken French. It's only images, but it's all about the culture. So again, you can learn a lot even if you don't speak the language. So I'm glad you liked it, Kelly. And it's a fantastic bande dessinée. So I'm glad you liked it. There will be more books very soon. Okay, I'm checking the other questions again. Anne says, je voudrais savoir le nom de ton rouge à lèvres. Je l'adore depuis beaucoup d'années. I wear Chanel. I know it's a huge cliché, but it's a very, I like this brand, and that's the lipstick I wear. So yeah, it's a Chanel lipstick. Evan has a question about how we make the videos. Hi, Geraldine. I love your work. Thank you, Evan. My question is mainly about you. What seems fitting as you are Comme Française to me? I like what you wear in your videos. Thank you. Do you spend a lot of time shopping and planning your clothing? Your smile and teeth are perfect. Do you bleach them? How many people are involved in Comme Française? Will you be doing any planned events or meetups in England? Thank you very much. Looking forward to hearing more from you. Lots of questions here. Do you shop? Do you spend a lot of time shopping? I love to wear nice clothes, but I'm not really good at shopping. So I know a few brands that fit me, and that's where I go. Do you plan a lot of your clothing for Comme Française episodes? I tend to be careful on not wearing the same dresses in a row. So that's kind of a thing we have, to have different caresses for several episodes. Do you bleach them? Well, I don't, but that's not the point. About the culture. In France, there's no, I think you'd say, dental hygienist. It's not a dentist, it's another thing. We don't have this in France. It doesn't exist. The people who take care of your teeth are always a dentist. So it would be funny to go to the dentist several times a year if you don't have anything. So that's just a point in culture. Don't look for dental hygienist in France. We don't even know what that is. I discovered that in Canada, where I was for a couple of days, and I just discovered this job. We don't have that. How many people are involved in Comme, Française? Well, as if you're a student in my premium program, you've probably met my customer care people. Fantastic team, Lawrence and Jennifer. They're really great. They help me with answering customer care email, especially technical things. So if you've lost your password before, or you had trouble with your bank or your PayPal details, they're the people who help. And I take care of everything that's around French. I have Darren, who helped me with editing the videos. I did the first 50 videos, I think. But after that, it's not my expertise. It's better for me to focus on teaching you French than editing my videos, because I'm not good at that. So yeah. Then we have other people helping on several things, but it's not the point of today. What kind of music do you like? I love La Chanson Française, which has very nice lyrics. So if you're looking for French singers, I'm a huge fan of Juliette. She's a singer from Toulouse, and she has such a lovely music. So you should check her out. She's really, really good. Liliane has a good question. Well, everybody has a good question, but I'll try to pick the ones that are good for everybody. J'habite dans une ville où c'est difficile de trouver quelqu'un avec qui pratiquer mon français. Tu as des idées de comment je pourrais améliorer mon français à l'oral? Well, Liliane, your French is already really good in written form. So congratulations. Pour améliorer le français à l'oral, si vous n'avez pas d'alliance française ou d'école ou de personnes avec qui pratiquer, if you don't have anyone to practice with, or an alliance française, which is where I recommend you to go if you can, italki. I've heard very good things from students about that. You can select a teacher or a practice partner for French. So I've recommended that in the past. I've heard very good things from students. I should talk to them about doing something together. I just don't have the time. But italki, it's ITALKI. It's very good for finding practice partners and teachers. It's you have to pay, but it's very, very cheap compared to how much you can improve. How old are you? I understand this is really not an info the French like to disclose. I'm okay. I'm 32. Do you listen to Chérie FM? I love this radio. I don't listen too much radio in the car. We tend to listen to local radio, such as France Bleu. I know it's not very sexy, because France Bleu is more of a local radio for older people, but we like it because it's very local and it's always fun. But Chérie FM is something I really like, because it's lots of... you can choose French songs if you're listening to Chérie FM online. So I very often recommend students check Chérie FM, because you can pick the songs you want, the kind of songs you want to hear. So that's a good thing. Géraldine, quel est ton boulot? Well, Comme Française is my full-time job. I would need more than a full-time to do everything I would like to do for you. But yeah, that's my full-time job. And I have to say, I'm always amazed that people ask me if I have a job on the side, because I don't know what I could do. maybe a night job, but no, I wouldn't have any time. It's so much work. Quelle est la chose la plus frustrante avec Comme, Française? What is the most frustrating thing? Well, sometimes it's hard to acknowledge the fact that I can't do everything at once, and that some things take time. For example, I would love to make more courses, bigger courses, doing more things, but it takes time. And sometimes time helps you think. For example, our current courses that we're making right now is Everyday French Conversations. And I've been working on Ludo's interview and Ludo's conversation yesterday, the day before, this morning, and it's still not done. It's a huge thing. And I'm kind of frustrated because it takes a lot of time. But at the same time, I can give you more by spending more time working on that. So that's what's difficult. But that's what happens with any project you have. Okay. There was one last thing. Are you going to do events or meetups in England? I don't know yet in England. If someone invites me, like une Alliance Française, like London, yeah, I would love that. So far, not. I've done that in the past. I've done twice in London. We've done New York. We've done Chicago. We've done Paris several times. What's coming soon? It's not booked, so don't go yet. In May, we're planning on doing something with a fellow teacher in Paris. And in July, in Montpellier, I'm doing something. So if you happen to be in Paris in May, or early July, in Montpellier, I will do something there. You will know more about that in the newsletter. So if you want to hear about events, it will be by email. I don't share them on other platforms because we already have a lot of people. Mike says, awesome videos and courses. Thank you, Mike. When watching shows in French, do you recommend watching them with subtitles or without, in English or in French? It depends on your level. At my level in English, which is not perfect, I try to watch without subtitles sometimes and sometimes with in English because it helps me catch new words. So if you just want to work on your comprehension and as a challenge, you can watch a French program without subtitles, but you're not going to learn from it. If you want to learn, you will have to watch it with subtitles so you can see the word at the same time as you hear it. But also don't rely on watching shows in order to learn a language. I know it's the easy path. And lots of people say, yes, just by watching a whole season of Kabul Kitchen or Camelot or Plus Belle la Vie, you can learn French. The answer is no. It's wrong. You will improve a bit of your comprehension, but you have to be in an active mode in order to learn a language. I know it's hard to integrate because you think it's helping. It is helping for comprehension, but again, it won't help you speak better French. And it's the same for any language. I just watched Dark on Netflix in German. I watched the full episodes, the full season. I don't speak any better German. Nothing. So you won't learn just by watching. You will have to be active. So you can study an episode, and yes, with that, you will learn a lot. But for speaking the language, watching movies is not helpful. What are your favorite French shows or movies? My favorite French movies, but you have to watch them with subtitles or you might misunderstand them, is OSS 117. It's very dark humor. It can be hard to catch, but it's one of my favorite movies in French. Also, an older movie I love is Les Tontons Flingueurs. It's absolutely fantastic. You could read the script and enjoy it. In terms of series, my favorite ones are Kabul Kitchen, Camelot. Yeah, these are the ones I would watch again and again and again. Okay, I'm good on both sides. Where do you film your videos? Is it in a studio or in your apartment or house? Well, it's here. So I work in a co-working space in Grenoble, which I kind of co-founded with a friend. And when we moved in our new office, I assume you saw that on Comme, Française, you had several sets. So this one is the latest one, which we built. So everything is built and chosen by Christina, who is my fellow teacher who teaches English, and me. So even the curtains, everything was chosen by us on a Saturday morning in IKEA. So you can get your own set. And it's a meeting room that we decided was going to be the studio. So some people rent it for meetings, but for YouTube videos, you will see this set on Christina, with Christina's channel, which is Speak English with Christina. It's the same set. And the funny thing is, some people told us, like her and me, do you know that someone else is using your studio? And we're like, yeah, we build it together. So it's always a fun thing when people tell us, do you know that someone is stealing your work? Well, no, we're doing it together. It's not a coincidence. So that's a fun thing. So it's an office, and we take one of the rooms as the studio, and we call it the studio. So behind the curtain, there's a massive window, but we wanted to put a curtain so we could film in it. Okay, I'm going to move on another category. Salut Géraldine, quel est ton accent français préféré? So this is more about the conversation, French conversation questions. Alors, il y a plusieurs réponses. What's your favorite French accent? There are two things. My heart says my favorite accent is from La Savoie and La Haute-Savoie, because this is where I was going on holiday when I was a child. This is a region I moved in. So this accent from Savoie and Haute-Savoie, which is from La Région Rhône-Alpes, is my favorite, because it sounds like holidays. For me, I love their expressions. I love their grammar. It's the one I kind of know now. But the one that makes me smile is the Belgian accent, the northern accent, especially from Belgium, I would say, is one that I like to hear, because I love how it sounds. So that's what I like. Jessie says, can you show us the accent? I cannot make it. But for example, in Haute-Savoie and Savoie, they have this use of Y, which is a Y in English, that they put in funny places. It's something that we talked about in the episode with Mathieu Avanzi from Française de nos régions, which is a blog I highly recommend you read. We talked about this Y. And for example, instead of saying, it's hard to think about it now. Je vais y mettre. For example, instead of saying je vais le mettre là, I'm going to put it there. Je vais le mettre là. They would say je vais y mettre là. They have an extra Y, which is always very cute and I love. Eileen says, comment reçoit-on votre newsletter? You go to comeinfrancaise.com and you subscribe to any opt-in box you can find, and they will all lead to the same place. So at the bottom of the post, you have the newsletter, and this is where I send my free course, Everyday French Crash Course, which I highly recommend everybody takes because it's really good. Well, students love it. So, and we also have special offers, and also events are only mentioned by email. So that's my special relationship with students. So if you want real things from Comme Française, don't miss it by just staying on YouTube or Facebook. Join us by email. Georgia says, je suis de Liège. Oh, super. Très bien. So maybe you speak French with this accent that I love so much. Can you teach us bad words, des gros mots? Uncomfortable, but I know they're a part of everyday speech. Well, not live. I'm not going to teach them here because I would need to write them, explain the context. If you want to learn more about this kind of words, it's something I teach a lot in my premium programs. I know it might be in French vocabulary and pronunciation. I have lessons on swearing words. And also I teach all the insults that you should not use. Why? Because context is everything. In France, we don't have censorship, like beeping swear words. For us, words have a meaning, but they wouldn't offend just because they're words. So I teach them so you can understand the situation better. I teach homophobic, anti-Semitic, sexist, racist, everything, these kind of swearing words, not because I want you to use them, but because I want you to understand the context. So I wouldn't teach you to say bad words just for the fun of it, because I don't think it's fun. But I want to teach you the whole context about it. So doing that live on Facebook or doing live on YouTube wouldn't make sense because I wouldn't have the time and the proper way to teach you those. So writing them and the context and everything. So also be careful when people teach you just by saying putain, you can sound French, because you won't. Swearing by a foreigner is always more rude than swearing by a native. So you might sound fun with your friends, but for French people, it's more offensive than if you're a native saying it. So always be careful when you do. It's fun, but you have to know the weight of it very well before you swear properly. Okay, I'm checking both sides of the chat. There are lots of people today. It's fantastic. Okay. A question about confidence. Dear Geraldine, how long does it take to feel really confident and integrated into French life? Even after 18 years, I often feel like I'm a stranger, often just a bit behind them. Also, French humor is so different. I don't laugh as much. It's all about confidence in yourself. There's no trick. I've seen students with 5 words feeling very well in French, and I've seen students with a fantastic French feeling very not confident. So it's really up to you and how people react in front of you. So that's why in Comme in Française, I'm not teaching grammar. There are lots of people doing that better than I do, and conjugation as well. What I teach is how to make people in front of you understand that you care. And usually this helps confidence a lot. For example, if you were there at the beginning of this live, I was talking about my student who's been living in Nice for a long time. And after going to restaurant for like a few, maybe months, she's been there at least 10 times. She went through one of our premium classes. I think it was Southern French for Fitting In. And after this program, the others started doing la bise to me. So what you should, if this is what you want to do, always ask yourself is, what would French people do? And in this way, by looking around, listening to what people are doing around you, it takes time. But you can make them see that you care, and that will make a huge difference. But again, it's all about self-confidence, and this cannot be taught. Well, some people might teach you that, but I can't. I can only give you tools to show you that you can do it. And then it's really up to you to give it a try. So there's no magic trick. You have to believe it yourself. Okay. I'm checking a comment here. Oh, Julie says, hi, Geraldine. I don't know if you already answered that, but you signed off your email yesterday saying j'ai hâte. What does that mean? It means I'm looking forward to it. J'ai hâte. It means I'm looking forward to it. It's because I was looking forward to seeing you today. Realistically, how much do French speakers cut their words and sentences in conversation? Can you make a video on this topic? We always cut words and sentences all the time. That's why it's so important to learn from real, authentic material rather than just textbooks French. Textbook French is great for basics at all levels. For me, you can learn basics at level C1 and C2. It's not something that's only for beginners. But if you want to learn how people actually speak, you have to let go of this comfort zone. It's very nice to understand every word in a artificial studio, super articulated French. But as soon as you arrive here, even if I was to pick you up at the airport, my French is not how you learned at school. So French people eat letters, eat sentences, use slang, use grammatical sentences that make no sense. But that's how we speak. And again, I'm not going to talk about this. It's weird to talk about this again, but this is exactly what I'm teaching at the moment in everyday French conversation. It's real, authentic material. And some students were very shocked by the fact that this is how we spoke, but it's true. So a sentence I often tell my students is focus on the French that people will use when you're not listening. Just like you are speaking your language with your best friend. It's not the language that you would use if you were doing an interview for a job. But the way that you speak in an interview for a job is a special way. And it's absolutely not how everybody speaks. Great Dances, will you be doing more videos entirely in French? Yes, we talked about this at the beginning. We were planning on doing one episode a month in French. What is the most polite way to ask French people to slow down when they're speaking too fast? We did a whole episode on this topic, so there will be lots of examples in the episode. You can say, but it will depend on your level. You can say, excusez-moi, vous pouvez parler plus lentement. Excusez-moi, vous pouvez parler plus lentement, s'il vous plaît. Okay. There's a fun thing. You can say doucement as well, but doucement means less loud. So if you're not 100% sure that the person in front of you is going to understand your French, lentement is 100% better because it only has one meaning. Doucement has both. So that's the thing. But you can Google Comme, Française, speaking too fast. I think you might find it. We are working on improving our search button on the Comme Française website. I know right now it's not working. So in maybe 1 month, it will be working perfectly. It's at the top of my to-do, but it needs a bit of technical work. Oh, a very good question, accents. Do you find that people from some regions of France sound funny to you? Have you ever not understood someone who spoke with local words that you were not accustomed to? Yes, but there's a huge but in the middle of the phrase. It's not as different as other accent that I've experienced abroad. the difference between different American accents and the difference between British accents, between you can see I'm thinking about Irish, Welsh, Scottish, and the London accent that is taught are way more different than the accents you will find in France. And I'm not saying that because it's my own language only, but because it means that you will never struggle too much, depending on where you're going. Yes, there are some times where there are people I don't understand, but these are very, very, very peculiar situations. For example, it would be a very old lady speaking a very dialectal Breton with a very strong accent that no one understands. But apart from that, I understand every accent. The only way I would understand a francophone would be if they're using very specific words, such as the ones that we saw again with Français de nos régions. And in Quebec as well, where the language evolved in a different way, there's some expressions, some words that I would absolutely not understand. So I would say that Quebec might be the French that I would understand the least, just because the language evolved so much. And also it has a history of struggling against English, which is not something that France has just because we don't live next to neighbors speaking English. So I'm fine. And again, there's some dialectal words that I would not understand, but the difference is really not as different as you can see in other countries. Okay, there's this thing about patois. Well, patois is a general dialect, but I don't even know anyone who speaks patois. So a regional expression is not necessarily a patois unless you live in a very narrow, very small village where all the people are actually speaking it. But it's not something that I would teach about because it's extremely specific, and I've never used it ever in 32 years. But it's an interesting topic, but it's more linguistics rather than the French for everyday life itself. David says, Géraldine, when did you learn to speak English? How long did it take? Do you think it's easier or harder than French as a second language? Well, it's the usual chicken and egg question because there's no answer. I learned English at school, but the way it's taught in French is not very good. And then I moved to Britain for 2 years. I was living in Leeds, in England, in Yorkshire. I was working there only with British people. I did not want to move to London for the only reason that there are too many French people, and you can easily get caught in a circle of expats speaking only French. So as much as I love London, I didn't want to live there just because it was a massive opportunity to be just learning French. So I wanted to move to a place where there would not be so many French people. How long does it take to learn French? It just depends on what you want to learn. Again, how much do you want to learn? Some people say they can speak French with 10 words. Others struggle with the fantastic C1 level or C2. It depends on what you want to do with it. It's really about that. I don't think French itself is more difficult than English, but French has more exceptions. But these exceptions, again, don't matter. If you can speak French with confidence, but your gender of words, of nouns, are all messy, no one cares. It's okay. So it's really, again, what you want to do. Okay, so MJB has a question about French in Africa, I would say. there's an interesting thing. So it was but because of like colonisation, which is French invading other countries, which is not super nice, that we have other francophone countries, just like you have English countries and Spanish countries and Portuguese countries abroad. So the way that French evolved depending on the country is very interesting because it also depends on how the language itself was seen. The few students I had who were migrants from Africa with a very solid background in French spoke a very pure French. So it was very interesting. Then French spoken by people from various, if you want to talk about skin color itself in French, is absolutely not different. The French is taught in the same way. It will be learned in the same way. The only difference you can find if people are coming from the Caribbean. So in this case, they can have an accent. I'm not saying it's always the case because some people adapt, just like people from the south of France, if they're moving to Paris, might on purpose lose their accent. But again, it's a very interesting area of the use of French, which is something I would love to do on an episode. I would love to talk about Caribbean French, but until now, I don't have any expertise, so I would have to find a guest. Do you ever think in English? Yes, but because I work in English. Do you ever think I think in English because I work in English all the time, and because I used to live there. But I can think in Spanish when I'm back from Mexico as well. So it's really up to what I've been doing. You're welcome. Are you a polyglot? I speak 3 languages. Okay, so let's move on a bit to culture. Okay, I like that about the use of merci. Many years ago, a French friend told me that saying merci to the offer of food or drink meant no thank you. So if you say oui merci, is it a contradiction and can it be confusing? Is it true? Yes, absolutely. It's something that we mentioned in I think in some classes. Absolutely. If you want to say no thank you to an offer of food, you can say merci, but you have to mean it. As in your body language has to mean it. You can put your hand, for example, saying no. You can say non merci or merci itself, and that means no. Is it a contradiction if you say oui merci? No, because if you say oui merci, you're saying oui, so it means that you want the food or the drink. Okay. Do you like Club Dorothée? Well, I think it's a show for children from the 90s. I think my mom told me I liked it when I was a little girl, but I haven't watched it for 27 years. So I don't think it exists anymore. So some people might be more fans of it from their childhood, but it doesn't exist anymore. Okay, so the use of merci is very, very important. Esther says, someone told me that vous is used for unknown people, but someone else told me that it is used out of respect. Which one is right? Both. Both are right. Is there a grammar rule to know when to use le or la? No. Unfortunately, you have to learn the gender of words. There's no trick. There are a few tricks, but they're absolutely not. You cannot generalize it. And most of what you think is a trick won't help you for other words. Can you do an episode on baby talk? For example, in America, we speak to our babies using kid words. like kitty, doggy, night, night, etc. I would love to hear some common baby talk used in French. We've done that, I think. I think I remember an episode we made about this. So if you Google Comme Française and enfant or children, you might find it. What does the fox say in French? So if you've got my email about today's live episode, I talked about what does the fox say. Well, it's a joke that we have between my brother and I. If you Google it, it was a music from I think maybe 5 years ago. It's a funny clip done by Norwegians. What does the fox say? In French, we say il glapit. So that's the noise that the fox say. But it's more of a joke between us as the default question. If someone ask a question, we say, what does the fox say? What are the top 5 places you like to visit in France? There's a place I would love to go. It's Corsica. I would really love to go there. The places I like to visit that I've been to recently are, I love Nantes. It's a very nice city. Lille is pretty nice as well. If you have time to visit France and you're into, I would say castles, Guédelon is fantastic. It's un château fort that is currently being built. So it's great because they're doing it with the techniques of the past, of Middle Age, and it's really great. We've been there twice. We're thinking about going there again this summer because every year they build more things, so there's always things to learn. I love science history, how you could build cathedrals, for example. I think it's fascinating. So seeing a castle being built is something great. That's Guédelon. Guédelon, Guedelon. It's worth it if you're in France. That's 3 places. Other places I like. I went to Carcassonne a few years ago, and that was really nice. And then a place I like around here in Grenoble is all the ski resorts that you have that are very cheap. They're pretty small, and you can go skiing without having to spend so much money. So something I really like here in the Alps is that you can enjoy winter sports without spending too much. And that's pretty good. So that's a good thing. And in the smaller resorts, you mostly have French people and local ones. So you enjoy it a bit more. MJB says, are you from Paris? I was born in Paris. I grew up near Versailles, where you have the big castle. I went to Le Lycée in Versailles, so it was next door to the castle. And then I moved to Grenoble to study, and I stayed. Astrid says, would you go to Denmark on vacation? I was in Denmark in September, and it was very nice. So yeah. What is your favorite museum in Paris? It's, I would say Le Musée des Arts et Métiers is my favorite one because it's about science and you have lots of things about history in France. The one I love about Paris is Le Musée Carnavalet. It's really something I love. And recently, I'm a bit ashamed of saying that, but I went to Le Musée d'Orsay for a first time as a grown-up, and I loved it. So that's my top 3: Arts et Métiers, Carnavalet, and Musée d'Orsay. I'm checking everything. There's some questions about school recommendations. I don't make any school recommendations for studying in France just because I don't have the expertise. And also it will depend on your nationality because the visa is very important. And it's best to check on what kind of student exchange there are in your own university. Okay. We're doing pretty good. A rumor has it that the French women do not shave her legs. Is it changing or false? Well, there are several things. First, all the things about hygiene about French people is wrong. It's a cliche from, I don't know, the 17th century, where it was the Middle Ages, so no one was washing because they didn't have water. The second thing is, are French women different in terms of what they do from other countries? I don't think so. And the third thing is, never shame anyone because of what they're doing. So this question I struggle to answer. The answer is the cliche is wrong, but the main thing is don't shame anyone because of whether they're shaving their legs or wearing makeup or doing things that they're supposed to do but not doing. That's my best question, I would say. So the cliche is wrong, but remember, don't shame anyone for what they're doing or not doing. Okay. During my time in France, it seemed to me that French are more reserved, especially when it comes to stranger, than the member of my Midwest American culture. Est-ce que vous pensez? Do you think it's because of history? It's culture. French people are not as open on the first I'm not going to say date, but meeting than other countries are. You have to earn it, I would say. And it's not in a bad thing, because for us, being less open is our neutral mode, and it's out of respect. For example, for us, silence is respect. If I don't speak to you because I don't know you, I respect you. If I go and talk to you and you don't want that, that would be disrespectful. And as soon as you start talking to people, you cannot stop because you're building something together. So I would say it's not saying that French people are more reserved. We are, but it's more that the expectations of the culture are different. And as soon as you get the difference, it helps you. It helps you improve your knowledge of French people and French culture. And also you will make wonders when you're trying to make friends. So that's the thing. Learn the culture and the customs, and it will help your language as well. Okay. There's a question about diversity that I'm not going to answer in detail, but there's something I have to say I regret a little bit that I haven't done yet, because I haven't just put my mind to it, is that I would like on Comme Française to be more diverse, and to talk about French abroad as well. I would like to talk more about Swiss French, about Belgian French, about Caribbean French, so we can have more sources to learn the language, because there is no better source of French. A friend of mine who is teaching German asked me, do you think that they're pure French? No, I don't think so. I think all ways to speak it are equal. If you speak French from the south of France, is as good as the Parisian French that everybody wants to learn. But to me, it doesn't make sense, because it would mean you would put a hierarchy between people. And especially in the language, it doesn't make any sense, because the language lives because people are speaking it, not because one is better than the other. So that's my goal for hopefully 2018 or maybe 2019, to bring more diverse French to Comme Française. Would you be open to coming to the US and doing a lecture to US French teachers? Yes, if you invite me. Why not? Absolutely. Ah, a question about cheese. Est-ce que les Français mangent du fromage seul ou avec des fruits, ou peut-être comme les Anglais avec des fruits et des biscuits ou quelquefois des noix? Never. That's a good way to spot a French, a cheese plate made by foreigners who want to pass as French or French people. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, as in I'd rather have someone saying, this is how I eat cheese, which is absolutely fantastic, rather than shops selling you a French cheese plate that is completely fake. So in France, we only eat cheese with bread. There's very, very few exceptions, but a cheese plate will only be cheese. You won't see crackers or fruits on it. And it's part of it's just before dessert. So you have the main course, cheese, and dessert. Sometimes a salad between main course and cheese, but it's up to people where they live. Okay. I like Mila's question. Why do French grown people use the trottinette so much? Do they mind looking goofy? It's funny because here in Grenoble, there are lots of them because the city is completely flat. So you can bicycle, you can do rollerblade, roller skating, lots of different things that you couldn't do if there was a big hill. There are people who think they're goofy. There are people. Can I ban people on YouTube? Just checking. Maybe I can. Yeah. Thank you. I just did. So I'm just doing that again once, and then better. Yes. Okay. So yeah, it seems a bit goofy for some people to be using trottinette. I'm not one of them because I think it's very handy. So yeah, it's a bit ridiculous for some people. Some people are going to say that grown-ups are just ridiculous on trottinette, which is something I understand. But the way it's used it's very, very handy for short trips, where, for example, you have public transport and then you have to get home, but it's very long to walk. So, for example, a friend of mine uses it between public transport and the office. Instead of walking, he just takes it, and you can take it in your car, you can take it in public transport. It's very light, and it's pretty practical. So it's really depending on the use you're having, but I see it a lot with people using public transport. So anything that helps not using cars is a pretty good thing. But I understand that some people think that it's a bit ridiculous because it looks like something that that children do. But honestly, in Grenoble, lots of my friends use that one. And if I wasn't that afraid of falling down, I would try. So maybe one day I will start and I will look goofy and I will embrace it. But you're right, lots of people think it's ridiculous. Oh, yes, another interesting cultural question. Is it true to say "à vos souhaits" when someone sneezes? I was told once that if something embarrassing happens to a French person, il faut faire semblant que rien ne s'est passé. Okay. Do they get embarrassed easily? A fun thing is that there are words that don't translate in French. For example, we don't have a translation for offended in French. which I think is hilarious because it shows that the way that people take things is different. So we don't have offended, we have other words, but the idea, the concept of offended doesn't translate in French. So if you wish something to someone, because the concept doesn't translate, they won't be embarrassed or offended. I've heard that about bon appétit as well. Some people say that bon appétit is rude. It's not true. Some people say it, but they're kind of snobs. That's not just me. Other people say it as well. If you want to wish bon appétit, wish it. It's nice. Just like for Merry Christmas or Hanukkah or other celebrations, even if you don't celebrate them, wishes are never helpful. They're always there to be embraced, even if you don't celebrate it. It's nice. I'd rather have someone wishes me happy Hanukkah, even if I'm not Jewish, rather than nothing. It's nice because it's sharing something. So about bon appétit, if you want to wish it, wish it. I do all the time. And à vos souhaits as well. It's better to show that you know this in the language, in the culture, rather than just ignoring it. So embrace it, try it. And it's nice. So yes, do it. I'm just checking. Is Sciences Po considered a good college in France? Yes, it is very good. But it depends on what you're studying, where you're from, and etc. So I cannot recommend French schools again. That's a funny question. What's the one thing that drives French people? What's the one main thing that Americans do in France that drives French people crazy? Well, I made a whole episode on embarrassing mistakes in French and how to scare French people. These are 2 episodes. So how to scare French people is usually a good way if you're interested in moving or visiting France and you don't want to, by mistake, scare people. Again, it's not against you. They're not going to think that, oh, you're stupid and rude and crazy. No, it's just the instinct, which is something I teach a lot on my premium program. Just make the difference between instinct and cultural differences, because instinct cannot be prevented and it's not against you, it's against an action itself. If you want to scare French people, as Americans, hug them. I mean it. They will freeze. Because we don't know what to do. And it's very intimate to us. So that's the thing. You can test it on French friends. If they're not used to it, they won't understand what's happening. And they won't move. They will be like, it will stop. It will stop. If I don't move, it will stop. Again, just like la bise sounds so intimate to some countries. To us, it's just the cheeks touching. But for us, a hug, having so much body touching is very weird. So that's the best way to scare French people. And it's a funny thing. Well, there are lots of questions about quand. It really doesn't matter. Quand means anyway, or however. It has a billion meanings. Don't focus too much on that. Just like don't focus too much on gender of nouns. Don't make them stop you use French. Quand is very, very much spoken French. It's difficult to understand if you don't share any context because it's so linked to the context itself. So quand means however, roughly, or anyway. But again, it can be used in many, many different ways. Can you recommend some simple storybooks for children? What is one of your favorite? Let me think. I did an episode on French books for children at Christmas. That would be my best recommendation that you check. I'm going to do an episode on fairy tales very soon. I've recorded it, but we're going to release it in May, I think, because we already have so many episodes in our list. You will have lots of fairy tales in there in French, and that's what I would recommend. If you want French fairy tales, you can check let me think. La sorcière de la rue Mouffetard, which is a very, very nice book, which is something I will talk about in the episode about fairy tales in French. Oh, a good question about how to progress in informal French. How do you stop yourself from sounding too informal when writing French? Most of my students sound way too formal when writing French, so I would focus on becoming informal in speaking French rather. I've seen lots of students at a B2, C1, C2 level sounding so formal that it sounds fake. So it's not a criticism, it's more a constructive feedback. The way that you learned French, I assume, is very formal. So if you want to improve, the next step would be to try to speak French, record yourself, and write what you just said and correct it. That's the best way to sound more authentic, because the way you learned French is very probably way too formal already. I'm going to take a few more questions. Which part of France do you recommend to live in? We're on the outskirts of Toulouse now. Well, Toulouse is fantastic, so you can stay in Toulouse. It's a great city. Que pensent réellement les Français des Américains? Pensent-ils qu'ils sont impolis, arrogants et stupides? What do French people think about Americans? Do they think that they're impolite, arrogant, or stupid? Well, if you think about the cliche that French people are rude and dirty, yes, French people think that Americans are impolite, arrogant, and stupid. But again, it's a cliche, just like any cliche. It's a cliche. People know it, but it's wrong, and people know that it's wrong because by definition, that's what a cliche is. So the answer is that's the cliche, but no, people don't think that. Michael says, isn't it rude to talk loud on trains? Yes. In general, yeah, it's better to be silent. Some people speak loudly on trains, just like everywhere, but it's absolutely not what should be done. So if you want to speak loudly, you can go to les plateformes, which is what we call between where people can sit. It's where you have doors, and that's where you can get a phone call or speak. But again, try to stay quiet in a train, especially because people like me are trying to sleep. I love to sleep in trains. Oh, that's interesting. There's a question on Nutella. Let me block that. Okay. Why is Nutella so popular in France? It seems bizarre for me as a British person to see a nation with relatively sophisticated cuisine not only use it so frequently, but for the jams to be so openly and apparently proudly displayed. Well, it's an interesting question also because it has a huge social impact. It's relative, well, it's not a good product. You're right, absolutely right. Compared to the kind of cheese that we're making, the kind of food we're making, the kind of love we have for food itself, it's not made by someone. It doesn't come from anywhere. It's not even made of real things. And it's full of sugar and it's roughly bad for your health. But it's very loved by children, and people who are children love it still. I assume that you're talking about that because Cindy says Nutella on crepe is amazing. Yes, Nutella on many things is really good. As long as you know that it's not a very good quality thing for your health, it's okay. I assume that you're talking about this also because there was kind of a riot in a French supermarket in France recently around that. What I didn't like is that some people made fun of this event without really thinking about what was behind it. And I'm thinking about French people. I'm not talking about foreigners. Because it's a bad product, some people look down on it. What we have to remember is that it's something that is loved by children, but compared to other products, it's expensive and people buy the brand. You can buy other kind of chocolate spread that are cheaper. Some are have more quality. But for some parents, it was important to have that for their children on their table. It wasn't for themselves. And a lawyer talked about this very well, that for people who don't have the money, Nutella is a luxury. And offering that to their children is a huge thing, very, very important for them. So what happened in this supermarket is that people didn't try it for Nutella. They had a fight because they wanted to share that product that their children love with them. Just like buying a toy that you think is stupid for your children for Christmas. It's not you thinking about the product itself. It's what you think about when you think about your children. So indeed, it's not a good product. It's not a high quality product, but it's a very much loved product. And lots of people are going to buy it because they want to make their children happy. And it's a luxury for lots of people. So that's the thing about Nutella. It's a symbol of a luxury for lots of people who can't afford it every day. For me, I can buy it, but lots of people can't. So that's the image of Nutella. It's a luxury for lots of people. But if you eat it on crepe, it's very, very good. If you want to add something else to your crepe, caramel au beurre salé is really what grown-ups like. What is your favorite French dish? I already shared it. For comfort food is les ravioles with cream and cheese on top of it. And le Mont d'Or is really good. Do the French, I had never heard that. Do the French consider it polite manners to eat asparagus pears by picking them with their fingers? I think you should eat them with your forks and knives. Usually, everything has to be eaten with your fork and knife, except certain things. But usually, it's fork and knife. There are questions about what are some good websites, courses, or resources for learners who need to work related business vocabulary? You can buy specific books. For business, the best thing would be to read websites and books and even Wikipedia about your own job. A student asked recently about architecture vocabulary, which is obviously not my expertise. And I recommended her to go and check the books about architecture and even the Wikipedia page about architecture so she could find out all the vocabulary that she didn't know. And that opened doors. It's not going to make it a billion times easier, but at least you know what you don't know and you know what is expected of your job. And that is very good. Knowing what you don't know is a huge step forward. So it helps. And this is something I see a lot with one of my premium classes called Le Salon de Géraldine, where it's only in French and we talk about everyday life, events in France, popular culture, is when students know nothing about a topic that is extremely important in France. And knowing what you don't know is important as well, so you can fill in the gaps. So if you want to learn French for business, knowing all the vocabulary you don't understand is important so you can fill the gaps. Do you take French vitamin B pills to be positive and radiant? No, I just like what I do. What did you do after school? Did you go to une grande école or normal université? I went to une grande école. It's the way that French people talk about engineering schools and politics schools, these kind of things, and école de commerce as well. So I went there. Okay, there's one last question. I enjoyed this live video. Is it more? It's more personal than scripted videos. Will you be doing more of these? I don't think so. It's something I'm doing for Comme Française's 6th birthday, which is very fun. I might be doing more in the future, just for fun. But when I make an episode with a purpose to teach you something, I can do something that's organized, where I know what I'm going to teach you, what you're going to remember. In this kind of episodes, it's fun, but you're not learning as much as you could if you're watching just one episode of Comme Française. So it's fun, but it's not organized as well as a lesson, and you're not learning that much. Cool. Thank you, David. We're going to do also new formats as well. So you'll see it soon on Comme Française. Okay, I think we're done. I went through all the questions that I had selected. I thank you very much for being here. It was very nice. It was cool to see some faces, some names and faces I know. Others I'm glad to meet. Next time I do that, I will get a moderator for YouTube because some of you were not very interested in France, I think. I'm going to get the massive raclette I bought for our weekend in the center of France. So we've got lots of cheese, very heavy. And after that, I will go for a weekend in the center of France to see my childhood friends. I wish you a fantastic day. Bonne journée, Cindy. Bonne journée à tous. I will see you Tuesday for the upcoming episode. Merci, Jack. À bientôt. And don't forget, if you're used to watching YouTube videos or Facebook, you're missing out on a lot. So please subscribe by email so you can get everything from Comme Française. I wish you a nice day. And salut!